Hey everybody, Jake here, and today we're going to take a look at the Rotring Skynn. This is a discontinued pen from Rotring with a very unique design. I don't have official measurements, so we're going to jump into it real quick with some rough ones I took. Closed, about 138.9 millimeters. Open, excluding the nibs, about 117.4. Nibs, about 19 millimeters. The cap's about 25 millimeters. The grip is 19 millimeters as well. Massive, massive grip. Weight's about 17.6 grams, 0.62 ounces. Please stick around to the end of this video. There will be something special happening at the end. I'm not going to tell you what right now, but please watch it all or skip to the end. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. But we'll go ahead and go over this real quick since I have it in my collection. And we'll jump into some size comparisons, like, dislike, and neutral. Alright, first up, size comparisons. Go and compare this to the TWSBI 580 all in pink. You guys know this pen by now. So you can see closed, it's fairly run-of-the-mill. Here's the Lamy LX, or Lux, however you want to pronounce it. And last up, a slightly smaller pen, the Jinhao X750 in the shimmering sands color. We'll go ahead and uncap the pens as well, so you can see just how big this pen is uncapped, or how long rather. And the cap is minuscule as far as fountain pen caps go. So you can see when uncapped, it's a fairly long pen. I really have never posted this pen unless it was to keep up with the little tiny cap, because it doesn't really add a whole lot of length, and the pen's fairly long, like I said, by itself. Also, it's not the greatest poster model, we'll get to that. But you can see it's longer than any of the other pens here when uncapped, even the Lamy LX, which is a fairly long pen already, at least in my book. It's not uncomfortably long because of how narrow the body is towards the back, but it's there. And I'll go ahead and show you this posted as well. So it doesn't add a whole lot of length. It's, again, more to me to keep up with the cap than anything else, because you're bound to lose this little thing. And I've dropped it several times. Luckily I haven't lost it yet, but you never know. And the TWSBI 580 all doesn't really, it's not supposed to be posted, but you can see here it dwarfs the Skynn. This is kind of odd because the Skynn doesn't have a very long cap and the TWSBI is not meant to be posted. And we'll go ahead and post the LX, and you can see here the LX is a long pen already. It's really, really long posted because it doesn't post very deeply, and it again dwarfs the pen. The Jinhao X750 is much more comparable. It's a fairly short pen, uncapped. So when you post it, it gets to roughly the same length. It is a tiny bit longer, but it's nothing too terrible. And if the weight of the Jinhao wasn't so heavy, I would probably use it more posted. I really don't use it that much to begin with. But you can see the length here is fairly comparable, give or take, you know, quarter of an inch or something like that. The cap really doesn't add much to it, but if you don't want to lose it, it's an option. I'm going to go and unpost this pen again to give you one more size comparison here. Here's something some of you guys might be familiar with or even have. It's just a Rickmobile. I'm sure a lot of you just have this lying around your house in a cabinet somewhere. So this pen is about 1.5 Rickmobiles long, which is, again, a fairly substantial size pen. Most pens are, you know, 1 3/8 or 1 1/4 Rickmobiles long. And this pen's also 2 Rick butts long, which is, again, not insubstantial. It's a fairly large pen. Let's go ahead and get the stuff I like about it. First up's the nib. Real quick here, you can see the nib is marked XL. It's not, that's useless to most people. It's between a medium and a broad. Fairly short nib with a pretty chunky feed. And it does write fairly well. There are some hard starts every now and then, but it keeps up, and this nib puts down a lot of ink, and I really, really like that about it. It's very smooth to write with, and it keeps up really, really well. Once you get it going, I really don't have any issues with it skipping or anything like that. It does happen every now and then. I'm not sure if that's from the ink I'm using or what. This is a somewhat dry ink. But the nib writes fantastic. It's very smooth. If you like larger lines, this is good for you. If you don't quite want a broad, but you want something a little bit larger than a medium, this sits right in between. Their nib measurement systems are not the best as far as I can tell on the Rotring Skynn, this one, and the Rotring Core, which is a significantly different model. Next thing I like, I'm going to show you the nib again here, just so you can kind of get a better look of it and the feed. The feed is smooth on the bottom with no fins. It does have fins on the side though. But the first thing I like, apart from the nibs, really the interesting design. I don't love the design, but I like that they kind of went outside the normal cigar-shaped pen and tried something really, really different, because that's what this pen is. It's super different. It's a very futuristic kind of design with some interesting materials. Next thing I like is the weight and the length. I like longer pens. They sit better in my hands. And the weight it's not super light. It's like the Safari. I love the length on it, but it's really light and I'm not a big fan. This pen's pretty good. Next up is actually not necessarily grip, but where the pen thins out, it tends to sit somewhat well in my hand, and without feeling too large or feeling cramped. And it also uses standard international cartridges and converters. This is good because you can kind of pick up whatever you have lying around, and it is long enough to accept 2 small standard international cartridges if you want to keep one in the back. Last thing I like about it is the build quality. The materials, like I said, are fairly interesting. You have a combination of rubber, plastic, and metal. I'm not a big fan of. We'll get to that in a minute. But they're put together very well. The pen feels sturdy, and it doesn't feel like it's going to break or anything like that. It's kind of a tankish pen. I wouldn't mind carrying this around in my pocket and using, in not a rough use situation. I don't want to damage the pen, but, it doesn't seem like it's going to break on me. Onto the neutral. First thing's the grip. This thing's massive. Like I said, it's 19 millimeters. That's freaking huge. And it's also this rubber, this like squishy rubber that if you've ever had like one of those grips you put on your pencils in school or whatever, about the same thing. It feels odd to me. I was never a big fan of those, but if you were, this might be the perfect pen for you. Next up's the cap. Super short and fairly hard to just pull off, so I find it easier to push to the side with your thumb to get kind of a snap, and it'll lift it up in a corner and then it comes right off. You can do this one-handed. You can use this pen one-handed. That does help, but pulling the cap straight up off is kind of hard. Next up is the clip. There's not much of a ramp. It's really hard to slide this onto anything. You kind of have to lift, which gives you a pretty big area too, but you have to lift it to get anything up under there. Next up's the materials. Again, rubber, plastic, and some sort of metal. The plastic doesn't feel that great. The metal feels decent, but the rubber and the plastic just aren't fantastic to me. Next thing's the price. This pen isn't super expensive. $5 to $10. May go up a little bit higher depending on where you get it from or shipping, but it's not too bad for what you get. Let's go ahead and take a look at the stuff I don't like about the pen. The first thing is, this pen can post, but not very well. It feels extremely insecure on here. Like it's doubting itself a lot, and I'm doubting it too, and I think it knows it. But it falls off fairly easily. I didn't hit it that hard on the desk, and I've never had it fall off while writing, but it doesn't click on very well. I have tested putting a piece of like Scotch tape really thin around it, and it'll sit on a little bit better. But it's very wiggly without it, and it just doesn't snap on there, and I don't know why it doesn't do the same way as it does when you're posting it. The next thing is the feel in the hand. The grip's massive, and though I like the size of the pen and the web in my hand, in contrast with the huge grip, it just feels off. It feels weird to me, and it would feel a lot better in like a pilot vanishing point position to me, with the larger end at the back, kind of narrower grip at the front. The grip kind of reverse contours, which I'm not a big fan of. The nib sizing kills me. I don't know why they marked it as XL instead of medium or broad. Some companies get away with calling a broad a medium. They could have done the same thing here. It puts down a very wet, very large line, and if that's not something you want, I wouldn't really consider this pen, because there are no other nib options for it. There's not an extra small, it's just extra large. That's all it comes in, as far as I can tell. Next thing is the grip stains super easily. Ink, I right now have ink of the Witch in here, which is a bung box ink. It's a really super dark purple, and it stains very, very, very easily. So it's not great. Next thing up's the branding. There's branding all over this pen. You can see the branding here. It stands for like extra comfort grip or something insane like that. But there's branding here on the clip. There's branding there on the back in huge, massive letters. There's branding here on the sides of the clip. Again, branding on the grip, and then branding on the tip of the cap. It's really hard to see, but it's like a squished S, which is the same symbol that's on the sides of the clip. This pen is covered in branding. I don't know why it's not. You're not going to mistake this for any other pen on earth. They could have just done with Rotring on the clip and maybe a Skynn somewhere smaller instead of being gigantic. But on to the writing sample. So again, this nib writes very smooth, occasional hard starts or skips. You can see there on the T. But it generally writes pretty well. I do occasionally run into some issues when writing with it if I push too hard, because the nib does give some line variation. Just kind of normal line with some pressure, and a reverse line. You can see it goes to about double the line width when you press. So it's interesting. Again, the ink I'm using is Ink of the Witch, which is a bung box ink I picked up in Japan. It's a borderline black, it looks like to me most of the time. But it does have some purple in there, and when it dries, it gets a bit more of that purple tone. So it's really nice. You guys should check it out if you get a chance. And any bung box inks, the two I have they're somewhat dry, actually, but they write pretty well. And I'll kind of show you the color here and kind of the wetness of the pen as well. All right, on to some conclusions. So this pen, for the price, is not bad if this is what you're looking for. Very polarizing, super duper polarizing design. And you either love it or hate it. I'm not a big fan of it, but it writes really well. If I could take this nib and put it on a different design, it might work well. There's a Rotring Core that is a little different design, and I may look into picking it up if it wasn't quite so expensive. It's a little bit more than this pen. But real quick, I told you guys if you watched to the end, there would be something special. I am going to be giving away this pen. I don't use it. It's a good writer. Maybe somebody else out there wants one, or they don't have their first fountain pen, or they want another fountain pen. Doesn't matter. If you're subscribed to me already, by the time I post this video, you'll get 2 entries into this. But all I want you to do is just leave a comment. Tell me what your favorite thing is about this pen, or your least favorite thing. That way I know that you watched to this part. And I'll just put it in a random number generator, and when I post my next video next week, I'll go ahead and announce the winner and get it shipped off to you. Continental United States only, please. I don't want to pay, $1,000 for shipping for this pen. But it will include a cartridge and a converter for you guys, so whatever your preference is. Just want to, give back to the channel a little bit, because you guys, the support means a lot. The comments, likes, dislikes, even views mean a lot to me. But thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and keep an eye out for my next video. Thanks, guys. Bye.